So thank you, Justin. Follow that one. Very entertaining. I'll try and keep it short, probably not quite as entertaining as that. And good morning, everyone. Nice to see so many friendly faces in the room on the 5th of my Adaptathon. So we've covered a lot over the last year. I'm going to cover a lot today. And as you said, it's very much saving the best to last. T for talent. It's all about us. So it's quite nice talking about us. I'll try not to talk about me the whole time. I'll talk about us. And it is like, we've called it a war, winning the war for talent, because let's be honest, it's competitive. We are competitive amongst each other to try and attract the right talent. We're competitive in the world so that London and the UK gets its best share of the talent across the world. And also we're competing against other industries for that talent. So that's why we're calling it winning the war. And what I wanted to do before we go and focus completely on T for talent. Now, hopefully most of you are aware of this, but for those who haven't been to any Adaptathon or have been not reading the press or not reading blogs for the last year, if you had on one page to sum up what I've been trying to do to try and represent what I think the issues in the industry are, is really, it's not just talking to us. We can, and funnily enough today, I think we're going to have one client in the room later on. This is the first Adaptathon where we haven't had any clients, because it's particularly talking about our talent. But everyone else, every other Adaptathon, we've been talking very much about us as an industry, because let's be honest, we don't do ads on our own. We do it with our clients, and we do it with a variety of people, not just in agencies. So that's why I've been talking about the marketing and comms industry. We've had a client council, and we've worked with the media, we've worked with intermediaries, all sorts of people to bring together. What are we trying to achieve together? Why are we employed by our clients is to deliver ideas that work, or what I call commercial creativity. And how do we get better at that in an ever-changing environment in which we work in? And why do we need to adapt? Well, because we need to. I've been in the industry since '83. Has our model changed that much? It hasn't changed a lot. So what I'm looking at doing is reshaping the business model to reflect this evolving industry. And I've pulled out 5 areas, so hence, and then the acronym of ADAPT, which for those who aren't aware is that. So we're on the T, but just to quickly touch on what we've been going through is firstly alliances. How do we, with our clients and other people in the industry, how do we work better together, ideally to do less pitching and more partnerships? I like to use the word P for alliances, but I've chosen the A. But how do we get stronger partnerships or alliances? Because we know the stronger, better relationships create better work that in turn leads to better commercial creativity. And we looked at a range of things which I'll touch on later. The second thing, if that's our bedrock, the second area, which is all about diversification, is what we do. So it's moving from, I'll call it one-dimensional advertising to more multi-dimensional content. And how are we doing that? And lots of us are doing that, but how do we do that more in this ever-changing, but not throwing out all the fantastic principles and practices we do, it's evolving it. The third one is really how we work as a process. In a 24/7 always-on world, how are we more agile? And this is particularly relevant, I think, to talent. How are we more adaptive or agile with our talent base? But that, not only with our talents, but our working processes. How do we do things that aren't in 6-month creative development phases? How do we do things in weeks or days or even minutes? The fourth one we've been on for the last 100 days has all been about performance, and that could have been payment or procurement or pain. But we all know that but the idea of being how we're paid for what we do is, if we can make it less time-based, more outcome-based, not throwing away time-based, but evolving it to be sort of measured on our outcome, the better for us all. And that leads us on today to talent. And I'm calling it less traditional, more diverse. And what we've been doing is a series of events like this, but there's more than just the events. This is at the heart of each 100 days of the whole programme. But what we do think pieces, we do get-togethers, we do seminars, we do blogs, there are articles, but it's all about encouraging new thinking and experimentation. So what we're expecting today is, yes, you're going to be talked at, and there'll be questions, of course, from the floor, but the afternoon is much more about getting your sleeves rolled up and getting actively involved, and that's going to set up some thinking to see what experiments we all take on board post this event. And it's really about, what I'm trying to do is create a movement, just so we move forward in nudges that evolve best practice, and where we need to, out bad practice. Share our learnings where we can. Yes, we're competitive, but the sharing principles that we all pick up together as an industry, and elevating standards. It's a classic movement. That's what we're trying to do for the benefit of all. It's about creating win-win. It's not a win-lose scenario. It's evolving. And we are 4 chapters in. You'll see on your chairs a booklet. That's the 4th one. What we do is write everything up, not just in a good old-fashioned book, but on a hub that we share with Marketing Magazine, and we share with ISBA. And what we look at doing and working with a number of people is the learnings brought together. And this is not supposed to be the end. This is supposed to be the beginning, sharing what we're all picking up and evolving it. And we'll do another one from today and from the next 100 days of what we pick up on the talent. And what we're trying to build it towards is an overall publication that sums up across everything, so that will be probably launched early next year, that collates everything together in a new sort of commercial creative contract to help us better our commercial creativity. So if that's the background, we're here to talk about that. Less one-dimensional, more diverse. And let's be honest, we're doing a lot, so I should say. You know, it's not as if we're not doing anything on this. As an industry and as the IPA, we've been doing a lot, especially over the last 10 years. But when you look at Ad School, for those who don't know, that's very much second-year students. For Ad Academy, that's for graduates. Creative Pioneers, my predecessor Nicola, had a big drive for bringing in people, school leavers, not just graduates, but that's all under Creative Pioneers in association with Metro, and that's been evolving over time. And of course the IPA CPD, Continuous Professional Development Programme, and we're celebrating it. In fact, a predecessor here, Stephen Woodford, actually started off when in my place, he was doing this 10 years ago, of pushing us to take on qualifications. And look how over the last 10 years, how we've evolved, and we're celebrating that tonight in a drink. So there's a lot going on, and also there's new initiatives that will be coming out. The council, IPA Council, there's a new initiative going to be put forward in December that will all be shared with you early in the new year, which will be building on what we're doing today, but on this whole area of qualifications and how we take that to the next stage. So, I've called it Let's Win the War for Talent. That's already been out there as a publication in marketing, so that's there to sort of provoke, because there's a lot of talk about what we do, and I think what today is very much about is turning words into actions. Taking a lot of that talk, listening to some really expert speakers to make you think, to then get involved in experimentation this afternoon and beyond. And that's what we're hoping to achieve, to keep ahead in the marketplace. So I'm going to just touch on the wider context. The next speaker is going to go into more detail on this, but to start your thinking and to sort of get debate going, I think we have to think as an industry. I mean, Justin mentioned it. I was going to say exactly the same. I am a classic ad man, right? I'm white, I'm middle-aged, I'm middle class, I'm from Wandsworth, and I'm not a digital native, right? Pretty much similar here, yeah. So what we need to make sure of, and this is not for PC reasons at all, is to get us better at commercial creativity, we need to understand our audience. And if our audience is reasonably diverse, we need to be diverse. And when you go through it, in terms of diversity means age and gender and culture and creed, but as well as skills, particular skills that we need to bring in as our industry evolves. And how do we do As age, actually, we're not bad. We're not bad. Our average age of employees across IPA IPA agencies is 34. And I always loved coming into our industry, and I tell young people coming into it, it's meritocratic. It doesn't matter how old you are. Actually, we are, it's how good you are. And I think we're really good at that. So overall, I think our age, we're pretty good in terms of the profile, and we give people the chance, whatever your age. And in fact, over the last 2 years, we've had a 10% increase in the number of employees under 25. So that's definitely evolving. And we have 100 school leavers coming into the industry via Creative Pioneers. 100? Why isn't it 1,000? Why isn't it 10,000? Why isn't it more? But I just think, it's a start, but we can build on it. And I also think that some of the sort of slightly older people over 34 in the room, and I'm trying to defend myself here a bit, don't get rid of us too early, Stephen, because there are, we do represent another part of the audience we're talking to, but also experience. Other industries actually listen to that experience, but I'd say listen to the experience, but bring in digital natives who really get the audience, and it's a balance. I think in gender, again, we could be better, but we're not bad as an industry. 51% male, 49% female across the whole IPA agencies. And you get more females in certain jobs and more males in others. So in digital, and that overused word, which we shouldn't really use so much now, but in that sort of technical side, it tends to be more male, and oversimplistically, in sort of HR, you tend to be more female. But I think one of the things where we're not good at is when you go through in terms of women at the top, 22% of management are women in the advertising industry, 33% on council, it's not bad, but 22%. So how do we retain female workforce? I think is a real issue that we need to continue to look at. We're not going to, that's something that Nicola talked a lot about in her particular presidency. So we're evolving. I wouldn't say that's a major issue, but it's something we need to keep moving forward on. We're not necessarily going to focus on that today, but there'll be other things we'll be focusing on. More on culture and skills. Because I think culture internationally, 13% of IPA employees come from don't come from the UK. So as we are a hub for international work, should we be having more? Possibly. In terms of culture, and this is something that we're going to hear more of in a minute, but from Sandra especially, is how diverse are we culturally? Now, I was quite surprised to see this, that if you can read that from the back, but overall UK of our 60-odd million population, 13% are from British Asian minority ethnic. And actually the IPA has 12% in our membership. But when you look at conurbations like Birmingham, or particularly London here, it's 40%. Do we represent, who we're actually communicating to? Not bad. Who we actually work with in terms of our community that we're working in? Do we reflect that? Probably not. And also, if you look at over the next, I think you'll hear it from Sandra, but over the next 30 years, by 2045, that's going to change even more. And are we bringing in? Are we embracing diversity as much as we could? I think you'd probably all say probably not. So that is something we're going to be delving into more. Then I would say on skills, I think there's a whole range of skills that we need to address. And we compete against management consultants, tech startups, game developers, city traders, bankers, a whole number of areas we compete in to try and attract talent. And we all know this, in 60 seconds, it's amazing what's happening to our world and how it's being revolutionized. Are we really addressing the digital natives? Are we addressing technology as well as we could? Because we need creative technologies. A creative idea now is less about a planner, copywriter, art director coming up with it. A lot of it's about technology and what you can do to come up with the right sort of engaging idea. So I think that's something, and not only data scientists, the whole area, are we bringing them in enough? And we're going to hear more of that from other speakers. So Max particularly, I think, is going to be touching on that. But this one here, I think, was quite interesting. the robot hypothesis. When you look at research from Oxford University, suggests 47% of American jobs might fall prey to technology in the future. In the UK, it's 36%. And it's a threat in some ways. You'd say technology, robots taking over what we do, especially when you look at programmatic buying. More and more, that's going to come in. So either we sort of like King Canute, we sort of push it back, or we embrace it and work out, what sort of roles are right and what are roles that should be mechanized. And how do we attract that right technological input to our more traditional creative base? We'll be hearing more. And the other area we wanted to touch on, and we're going to hear more from Sydney on this, is the whole area of retention. We actually as an industry are pretty bad. As it says there, if you can read it, 30% is our average churn. Now that means 30% in any one year, 30% of us move on. It could be to other agencies, but it could be outside of the industry. But when you look at other industries, the average churn is 10%. We're three times worse than other industries. And I think that means that makes it more difficult for us to make money because we're churning though. We have to retrain, we have to relook. And that in terms of value for fees, we're taking a lot of time and money in terms of bringing new people in and churning. So I think from a financial point of view, from a cultural point of view, how are we thinking about culture in our agencies and in our industry and attracting people in the right way with the right cultural background, but also training and qualifications. That's a real thing, and I touched on it before. Stephen started it. We've done 10,000 qualifications. 10,000 of the 21,000 members are qualified, have some qualification. That's under half. Shouldn't we all have some form of qualification? That's something we're going to look at a bit more. So, what we can all do is work in our own agencies, as we all do, but could we actually do it if we combined it together? Could we be better together? Going back to that war on talent, if we've got to attract people into an industry, I think we could be better together. And we had a consultative dinner back in March where we had clients, we had intermediaries, we had people from High Flyers, Creative Skill Set, Ideas Foundation, Marketing Academy. And what came out of it was we do lots of things. What about doing fewer, better things, coordinate better as a group, but also celebrate talent. I think we used to celebrate it a lot more as an industry. And one particular thought that came out of that dinner was doing do we need another awards? But probably the world doesn't need another award ceremony. But there might be one that's weird. At the end of, I've got probably a campaign in the room. We always do the end of year review on the best 10 planners and the best 10 account directors and producers. In Brazil, it's quite interesting. They do a big award ceremony. And you celebrate it. Is that something we should do or not? Don't know. But that whole area of industry-wide initiatives is what we're trying to do by having this sort of event today. But also, let's not forget client. We haven't got any clients in the room, but how do we engage with our client? We used to do this a lot more, job swaps. So if you have a longer relationship with your clients, you'll probably share more things. And I think the whole idea of clients are really keen on doing job swaps and even more keen on doing joint training. Training us more on the commercial side of the business and us training them on the more creative communication, commercial creative side of things. And I think if we train us all, if everyone's more informed, it's going to push up the standards and push up our commercial creativity. So there you go. There's a few things that we're going to talk about today. Now in the room, just so you know, as I said, no clients, but what we have is pretty much half and half. We have about half the people here from people management, half the people from senior business management positions, so MDs. And it's pretty much split with some allies and intermediaries, some consultants, people who actually look at how we work together in the room. So that's who you are, and that's what we're going to be looking for from you in the room, is what you actually come up with. And as Justin has said, I'm just trying to stimulate here with some first thoughts to provoke you into thinking. We're now going to hear some more inspirational speakers talk about going into more depth on those areas. And then in the afternoon, it's you guys. You're going to be led in sort of those groups. And what groups are we going to be doing? As you've picked up, really, the future skills gap, technology, digital. How are we going to fill that gap? How are we going to retain talent better? How are we going to go from 30% churn down? Because that's a core part of our business model we've got to get right. And thirdly, how are we going to be more diverse? How is this industry, all of us, more diverse to get us better at that commercial creativity? And that really is it. So you'll hear me more at the end. We're going to try and wrap up at the end when we've gone through everything to sort of say what are the things we want to take forward as an industry. I don't know where it's going to go this afternoon. It's sort of all down to you guys. And let's see what comes up. I'm looking forward to seeing what does happen and coming back at the end and moving it on. Actions, not words. Thank you very much. Back to you, Justin.